team members all go through, they start out with what we call awareness, which is where they learn what a hazardous chemical is, and then they go through an operations class, which all the firefighters go through. But then to be a member of the hazmat team, they actually have to go through a technician course and then up into a specialist course. And that basically trains them how better to deal with chemicals, how to patch a leaking drum. We actually have to wear full exposure suits. We can go from a level C, which is just like a splash suit, all the way into a level A suit, which is we are completely encapsulated, protected from the environment that's around us. And that requires specialized training, because once you get into those suits, it's the only air you've got is the air you've got on your back. And if you get into a bad situation, the only one who's going to get you out of it is you, or some of the team members that are trained to go in and rescue somebody. But if you go into what they call an IDLH, or an immediately dangerous to life and health atmosphere, you have to be completely protected from that. So it is a specialized team. And there's what they call household hazardous waste days that this county's sponsor. They're usually published in the newspaper, or you can contact your local waste hauler to find out. So once or twice a year, for those chemicals that you don't need anymore or don't use, or say you're cleaning out your garage or your barn and you come across something, instead of just tucking it in a corner or putting it in a cabinet and forgetting about it, so the next time fire shows up, something happens, they have to deal with it, you can take it to those household hazardous waste days. They also have those set up for prescriptions, old prescriptions that you don't need anymore. That's not really a hazmat thing, but that's a fire department thing, something that's really good to take care of. Don't just dump them down the drain. That's not good for the environment, not good for the wastewater treatment plants. Eventually it'll end up in our lakes. But those household hazardous waste days are really, really useful, especially if you're cleaning out, say, your parents' place or grandfather's barn, something like that. You come across some old chemicals that aren't really allowed to be used anymore. You don't know what to do with them. They'll take care of them. Other things that we sometimes run into are people, especially in the rural areas, where they'll have like large drums of lubricants that they'll buy it, they get a great deal on it, and 10 years later it's still sitting there, you can't read the labels anymore. They have a fire, the fire department gets there, they find all these drums inside there, so then they call the hazmat team in for us to come in and do sampling on it, determine what it is, maybe try and determine a way of getting rid of it. In the commercial settings, the fire departments can come in and do a pre-incident survey, and that's very useful, because what they do is they come in and they'll find out what you actually have on site. So if you are like a manufacturing facility or a gas station or a repair station, and you have a place where you store your used solvents or your spent cleaning solutions, or even the raw materials, it's very useful to know that in advance. And they'll come in, they'll sketch your facility, they'll put a little drawing, they'll say, this is like, we store it back in this corner, we have our flammable storage, over here we've got our caustic or our acids that were stored. Best bet's try and keep things segregated by a classification. Don't store your organic or your oxidizers with your fuels, because you run the risk of having a problem there if you do have some sort of a leak. And that's handled through the fire departments. Actually, the hazmat team is never called directly to the scene. 911 would dispatch a fire department. When the fire department gets there, they would realize that it's more than they're equipped to handle, and then they would request the hazmat team to come in. One of the things to make sure that you're careful of is, remember in Michigan that every water that goes down the drain eventually ends up in a stream or a river in the lake, whether it goes through a wastewater treatment plant and ends up out there. So any sort of hazardous chemicals, you want to make sure that you don't dump them out in the street, don't dump them in the yard, don't decide to bury them out back. Find a proper way to dispose of it. There are enough programs out there where it's not going to cost you to dispose of that stuff. Old paint cans, make sure that you dry them out before you throw them in the dumpster. Don't throw used motor oil. Everything will eventually end up in a body of water in Michigan, whether it goes into the body of water under your house and ends up in your drinking water, the aquifer down there, or goes out into the stream that runs behind your house and ends up out in Lake Michigan eventually, or into the local, one of the little lakes, Mona Lake or Norton Shore, or Blue Lake, White Lake, something like that. We want to definitely protect those waterways. There's not much we can do to clean those up once we contaminate them. One last thing, that if you do see anything that you suspect is an illegal dumping, make sure you call the authorities. There's a lot of times out there where people will clean out their barn and dump it alongside of the road, or we've had it where somebody was trying to steal something, didn't realize that they'd actually stole a hazardous chemical, dumped it out in the woods. It was found by hikers. The last thing you want to do is have your kids, grandkids, or family members coming across an illegal dump that's full of toxic chemicals.
I'm Neil Thorstenson with West Michigan, our Michigan Anglers Association. We put on this trout pond for the Sportsmen for Youth every year. It's one of their major draws. We have a lot of kids come here and enjoy catching fish. It's real fun to watch them. We've seen a lot of interesting things while we're doing this, but it's just an enormous amount of children that have gone through here, over 2,000 I'm sure, and they've all caught fish and they can turn around and come back and catch more fish. But they got to get in line again, and the line is just huge. But we run them through just as fast as we possibly can, and they all seem to have a lot of fun. Michigan Anglers, we meet at Boat Club, Moon Lake Boat Club, every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month. And then we have our board meeting the following Tuesday of every month at the American Legion on Hoyt and Seaway Drive, lamppost number 9. Our club is about 75 to 80 members at this point, and we're always looking for new members. Some of the things that we get into is we have the trout ponds at Roosevelt Park, the old-fashioned days, and the fruit port for their outing. And then we have the Sportsmen for Youth, which is here, and the Pheasants Forever. We have our committee, which is Jack Harrington, who puts this crew together to do this, putting all these forms together, and our liner, and setting this all up. And Jack does a wonderful job for us. He's our chairman. I'm going to introduce you to our chairman for most of our events, Mr. Jack Harrington. He handles the crews and put them together and does a lot for our club. Mr. Jack Harrington.
Yeah, we have a lot of events, and practically all of our events are, we have kid orientation, and from our perch derby in the wintertime, ice fishing, to our spring fishing, and even our boat fishing. We have the wives and the kids go out and fish for the day, and we have a dinner for them that we put on, a pig roast. That always is one of our most well-attended events. And we'll do Sportsmen's for Youth. And today we had almost 2,500 kids go through our trout pond here, where they get a chance to fish for trout. And well, the guys will clean them from our fish club and bag them for them, so that they can have a good product to go home with and to eat some trout. So, a couple of other events that we've also participated in this year is our veterans that we hooked up with the Charter Boat Association of Muskegon, and we helped to co-sponsor the veterans deal, where we had disabled veterans or just veterans, and we took them out on the boats, took them salmon fishing, and had them dinner afterwards, and that went over real well, very successful this year. And the salmon shootout. Also, we had Triport Salmon Shootout this year, which involved Grand Haven, Muskegon, and Whitehall. And on that, our club did all the fish cleaning, and we had 4,880 pounds of fillets that went to 13 different pantries in Muskegon County. We have our club meetings are on the first Wednesday night of the month, and we start opening up at 6:30 at the Moon Lake Boat Club, and the meeting starts at 7, and we'll have various speakers in talking about various methods of fishing, and it all relates to what we do here in Muskegon County and local fishing. So we have numerous speakers coming in every month to put on these programs.
My phone number to get a hold of me if you are interested in joining is 231-773-4945. All you have to ask for is Neil Thorstenson. Leave a message on my answer machine if I'm not available. I appreciate your call. We're always looking for new members, good members that want to participate and volunteer and work with our projects. Anybody that's out there that would really like to help us out, we'd sure appreciate it. Thank you very much.